Halacha Gimel. He says as follows, Heichel, Hirsha, you want this sambam?
Okay.
Huh? Okay. Heichel Shabonu B'nei HaGoyel. You know, this is the, talking about the second Beis HaMikdash. That the people that came back from Golus with Ezra, Hoya Meya Amma, Ameya Amma. Now, when he's saying Heichel, that doesn't mean that the entire thing. It means the Heichel section. Because there was a whole Azara, which we'll talk about later. The Heichel means the Kodesh Kodashim, the Kodesh, and the Ulam in front of it, and the entrance over there. So he said that the Heichel Shabona B'nei Goyla, Hoya Meya Amma, Ameya Amma, it was a square, 100 Amma by 100 Amma. Our room, Meya Amma, the height was 100 Amma. So now he goes on to explain, V'chein hoisen midas rumay. This was the details of the height of the 100 Amma. He says first of all is that Bonu Goiva Sheish Amas Autumn Sosum Kemoy Yisayla. That means that this is when you build a building,
Foundation.
every building has a foundation. Based on the height of the building that's divided, based on that is the depth of the foundation. The foundation is underground. So he's saying that there was one area underground, which was 6 amas high, and that 6 amas was just closed. Was like today they do also the same thing. They make like a frame from 2 sides, and they pour cement in it, and that becomes the foundation. So that's what it means over here, that it was Sheish Amas, autumn, closed, Sosum, both means closed. Yeah. Kamoy Yisayid, that was like the Yisayid. Verum Koisre Abayis, the height of the walls on building, in other words, let's say the first floor of the bayis was Aboyim Amma, was 40 Amma. So you have already 46 Amma of the construction. Verum Hakir Shabatikra Amma al Gabi Rum Amma. That means that this the kiyah over here. Usually when we talk about the kiyah, we're talking about a basin that they used to wash. This over here, kiyah over here means a design. From the word siyur v'kiyah, it's a design. In other words, what it means is that after they came up 46 amma, they made like a design ceiling, like you have over here, a ceiling with a design. So that's why it's called kiyah. So he says that. Let's look at the words again. V'rum hakiyah shebetikra was amma. Valgabov, and on top of that was Gavya, Gavya, and on top of that was Gaiva Shtei Amas Ponu. In other words, there was an opening of an area of 2 Amas. What's the purpose of it? Sheyichnas boy hadraf, that the rain should come in over there. It doesn't mean the rain. I'll still explain this over here. Vua nikra beis dilfa, from the word draf, so they call beis dilfa. Now let's just see the next line. V'oive hatikra shagabi beis dilfa. It was Amma. That means there was a designed from wood, a designed area, and then there were 2 Ammas, and then to lay the roof. So they first had like a layer, and on this layer they built the roof. Now, the way I understand it over here is that the concern was usually when you live in a house and you have a roof and it rains, and let's say there's a hole someplace in your roof, the water comes into your apartment. It could do damage to your apartment. It depends what area in the apartment it could hit a valuable part. So now what happens if there's a rain and the ceiling will not be good? That could be fixed, but the water came through. So the water would come into the Kodesh or in the Kodesh Kedoshim. So that's why they made these layers and an empty space, that in case the top leaks, it should leak into this area in here, and they can get in over here and clean it up before it comes down into the house. That's what he's saying over here. Just look again. V'rum Akiyah Shebetikra was Amma. Valgaba, and on top of that was Goy V'shtei Amas Ponu, a space of 2 amas. Sheyichnas by Hadraf, that the rain should come in over there, not go into the bias itself. V'anika beis dilfa, v'oive patikra she'al gabi beis dilfa is amma. In other words, there was a ceiling, like a plaster. Umaziva gaiva amma. In other words, when you make a roof, there was a roof, and that's like a plaster, and on top of that was the actual roof. So it was quite protected that it shouldn't come in any rain or any water. Va'aliyah benuya agavav, and on top of this, there was a second floor that was built. Gaiva kaisleha, the height of the walls of the second floor was aboyim amma, was 40 amma. And they made again amma of kia, of this type of the wood, the designed wood. V'amasayim gaiva beis dilfa, and again, in other words, before we were talking when you finish the first floor, before the second floor. Now we said when you finish the second floor, they had to repeat again. The repeat was that there was a designed ceiling, and on top of the designed ceiling there was an empty space of 2 amma, and on top of that, the amma tikra, the amma maziva, the gaiva maziva, the gaiva hamake shalish amas. Now, so if you add up all these numbers, it'll come up to 100. Let's just finish over here. Let's just finish it, then I'll explain something. Vitas shal bazel k'moisayif. Now, you go many times by houses, if they don't want people like Ganovim to come in or what, so they make like a barbecue, not a barbed wire fence like on top. So if anybody climbs up, if anyone climbs up and wants to get in, he has to climb over that. And usually he'll get stuck by the barbed wire, or he'll get hurt by the barbed wire, so he'll go down. Over here, they weren't thinking that a Ganav is going to want to climb up all this way and then climb over and go into the, let's say, Kodesh Kedoshim. That wasn't the concern. The concern was, but they made a makkah. A makkah is like a fence around the top. Kedei, the reason was, Shalayanuchu olav ha'ifis, the birds are flying, and they fly high, so normally the birds will land, like you see many times over here by houses, by small houses, you see the birds, and V'hu'a nikra kol ha'orev. Kol ha'orev means that it stops the bird, And the problem was that the birds, when they land over there, they'll make over there also. So it'll become like a garbage dump. It'll be a bizoy for the Beis HaMikdash. So Harei Hako Meya Amma. Now, so he's saying that they made a makkah on top of it, and on top of the makkah they had an iron, and the iron was cut like knives, cut out like sticking knives. Sticking. The reason was that if there was just be a makkah, so the birds could land on the makkah. But if there's sticking up irons, say that all along, they can't land on this. So this way, there was no concern that the birds would come up over there. The question is, huh? No, okay. One question is, okay, good, yes, good. One question, we know that they didn't have Basel in the Beis HaMikdash. They were very much against Basel. So the answer to that question is, that was in the bias, or in the kelim. The roof was not Naskadish. The roof had a din of chol, not a din of kodesh. So you're allowed to make over there.
From the bias?
Huh?
It's not a part from the bias?
It's not. No, it's a part of the construction, but it was not Naskadish. They had to be Makadosh. That was not Naskadish. That's as far as the question of iron over there. But there's another question. The question is, of course, when you build a house, you have to have a makkah, v'sisa makkah l'gagecha. But there's a Gemara that says, l'gagecha to your house, but not to a Beis HaKnesses. If you build a shul, a building, many shuls are built, marshal, like this way, coming, so you can't make no way to make a makkah over there. But if you have like a flat top shul, a flat top house would need a makkah. A flat top shul doesn't need a makkah. It's possible because they say the sisa makkah l'gagecha, and not to a flat top shul, not the flat top. If that's the question, so they ask the question. The Rebbe has a whole sikh about this. That why did they have a makkah in the Beis HaMikdash? So one test that the Rebbe gives, the same, based on almost the same as the question of the iron that was used, that the din is that when they built the Beis HaMikdash, the building wasn't Kaddish till it was completed and used. Once it was completed and used, then it became Kaddish. So therefore he wants to say that the time when they built it, the roof was chol. Being that the roof was chol, so it needed a makkah. That's one test I want to say. Another test I want to say is that the Rebbe writes this, that the makkah, usually why do you have a makkah on a roof? You have a makkah on a roof, that a person has to show shouldn't fall down. Keep on learning from imenu. But this makkah was not for beauty. This makkah was for beauty, not for the purpose of a makkah. A makkah that you have for protection. So so a shul doesn't need it. And there's no din of building a makkah for beauty. Over here by the Beis HaMikdash, they made it for beauty. And it could also be, I'd like to add to that, it could also be that they made the makkah in order to have on what to place that iron thing, yeah? Not to place the iron thing on the bias. Now, if we don't want to go with the approach that the bias was not Kaddish then, so we say that the makkah was to build on it this thing for the birds. That's one thing. Now, why do we need these truths? Because the Rebbe says that the din is that a bayis shel shutfim needs a makkah. even though the pasuk says "V'asisa maka l'gagecha," so l'gagecha is a lashon yachid, but it's addressing each person of the shutfim. It's addressing each person. And in a shul, there's no balabos really. And it's something that belongs to you, so you have to make tarzeh "V'asisa maka l'gagecha." But the shul belongs to everybody. Everybody can come from all, not only people from the city, from all over they can come. So that's why a shul doesn't need a market. And over here also by the Beis HaMikdash was also it's more than even a bayis shel shutfim. It's the whole world mamish can come. So if the whole world can come, could be that each one it has even less than, if you count up all the Jews, so each one has maybe even less than a pruta in it. Remember, so there's definitely no ownership. So if that's the case, we shouldn't need a makkah. So therefore, the Rebbe said that the makkah was for beauty purposes, not for the inyan of a bias that needs a makkah. Okay, we'll go on now to the next halacha. So he started with explaining, he said it was 100 by 100. And he started explaining the height, starting from the beginning of the foundation, all the way up on top, till the makkah was 100. Now he says, Min HaMayrev L'Mizrach was also Mei Amma, because we said before that it was a square. It was a square, so a square, all the sides is the same amount. So Ma'ariv Mizrach means from the end of the Kodesh Kodashim coming upward till the beginning of the Heichal was the Me'am V'zehu Cheshbainim. This is the Cheshbon. Abba K'salim Zeh Lifnim Mizeh. There were 4 walls, each one before the other. With an empty space. In these walls, they made like rooms over there, or was a chayil, different parts. We'll explain it soon. Ubeneim shloisha mekaymes pinuyim. And between them, in other words, if you have 4 walls, so you have 3 empty spaces, right? If you have 4 walls, you have 3 empty spaces. In other words, if you take an area that has 4 walls and you put in another 2 walls in between, so you end up having 3 rooms. 3 rooms. So you have the front, inside, and then the last wall. So that's what it means. Abog solim zeluf nim mizeh, ubeneim shloish mekaymes penuyim. Bein hakaisel maravi ubein hakaisel shelfnim. The last wall of the 4 walls was the original hall of the structure, which was the kaisel maravi. So he says, "Min hakaisel maravi." Bein hakaisel maravi ubein hakaisel shelfnim. Between this space over here, between the last wall and the first inner wall, counting from the back, Chomesh Amos was 5 Amos. Ubein HaKaisel Sheni Ushlishi was Shesha, was a little bigger room. Ubein Kaisel Shlishi Uravi was also Shesh Amos, was also 6 Amos. So right away already you have 5 and 6 and 6, you have 12, you have 17, and the thickness of the walls also. The Ve'elu hamidas heim shel oivei hakaisel im hamakim haponu sheben shnei ksalim. That means that this, not the pshat is that you had an empty space of 6 and then the wall, and an empty of 5 and then the wall and then an empty space. He's saying this area that we're talking about includes the thickness of the walls. Like what I said yesterday. Today, if you rent an apartment and they tell you it's 800 square feet, and then you come in and you want to measure, let's say, for carpet or what, and it comes out less than 800 square feet because you're not counting the place of the walls. The walls take up space. V'oirech Kodesh Kedoshim, and the Kodesh Kedoshim itself was Esamama. Okay. Ubein shtei hapareichas hamavdilas beinai ubein hakodesh. We learned yesterday that in the base in the first segment there was a wall between, but there was a suffix exactly what this wall belongs to. Does it belong to Kodesh or Kodesh Kedoshim? So in the second Beis Hamikdash, they made what they called an amatraxen, where they made two curtains with a space in between. So he says, "V'oirech v'chein shtei hapareichas hamavdilas beinai ubein hakodesh," was again amma. V'oirech hakodesh, and the length of the kodesh itself was abayim amma. So you have already 40 and 60. 40 and 20 is 60, and you have also over there those three walls with the spaces is another 17 actually. Mizrachi means the front wall, right? The wall Shabai Hashar, which had the entrance. Sheish Amas was a very thick wall. Ulam, the ulam itself, that's what they call it in English. They call it the antechamber, or the chamber before the Kodesh, was Achaz Asre Amas. And V'oive Kaiso Ha'ulam was Chamesh Amas. These were very thick walls. They had things going on in the walls also. Nimsa Kumdais, that I call that everything is Meya Amma, is 100 Amma. So now we have the width of the or call it the length. You have the length of the. We said it's 100 by 100, so there really isn't a width and a length. They're both the same, but the. Okay, let's see one more. Again, Menatzafim L'Darim. Before we were talking about this way. Now we're talking about this way. He said Menatzafim L'Darim was again Meya Amma. And Oive Kaisel Ha'ulam. See over here, interesting thing. Before, when he gave the dimensions, he started from the back and went up to the front. He started from the wall of the Kaisel Maravi of the Kodesh Kedoshim and went up all the way till the front to the beginning of the Heichel. Now he's going to reverse. It says that. Where is it? Again, Menatzafim L'Darim, Meya Amma was 100 Amma. Oive Kaisel Ha'ulam, Chamesh Amma. Umikaisel Ulam at Kaisel HaKodesh was Esa Amas. V'Kaisel HaKodesh Shisha K'Solim Zelif Nimizeh Ubeneim Chamisha Mekaimes Penuyim. And in between those empty spaces was like empty space, which became like offices or rooms. Ben Kaisel HaChitzen Ubein HaSheni. In other words, between the first one and the other one is Chamesh Amas. Ubein Sheni Ushlishi was Sholish Amas. V'chamesh ben Shlishi Revi, uben Revi v'chamishi was Sheish. Uben Chamishi v'Kaisel HaPnimi was Sheish. If you add all this up, Nimsa Hakal Haboyim Amma Mitzad Zeh. Haboyim Amma Mitzad Zeh Shekeneged. In other words, you have to understand, we're talking about 100 this way, right? So it didn't have all these walls going the whole thing. It was off the entrance. There was an entrance, and these were off the entrance. So all these that he described over here, on one side, when you went in to the right, he had also to the left. So he's saying that Rabboim Amma mitzad shekenegdoi v'roichav habayis mibifnim was Esem Amma. So Meile is Arei Mei Amma. So it comes out to 100 Amma. Let's stop over here.